Well, it's that time again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the interview with Craig Veltri.
Thank you, Megan Pennington, and welcome to the interview. Our guest is the author of The Happy Leader, part autobiography, part life manual. It details the life and journey of this man and his many roles and trials as a football coach, a teacher, an administrator, his research for his doctorate, marriage, fatherhood, and his current role as a public speaker. Recording in Charlotte, North Carolina, and calling in from Granbury, Texas, just outside of Fort Worth. Here he is, Dr. Calvin Lawrence. Dr. Lawrence, welcome to the interview.
Hey, thank you so much, Craig. I appreciate you having me on today.
An absolute pleasure, and it was a pleasure reading your story. I've spent a little time in where you are originally from, the Norfolk and Hampton Roads area out in
Yes.
Virginia, and you described that moving to Texas after college and after your doctorate studies as almost a lateral move because it was just kind of a similar layout, similar kind of environment, similar scenery. It almost sounds like. Was there more to it than that kept you in Texas, though?
To keep me in Texas, there's a whole lot more to it than that. Well, I can go to a really quick, the short and quick of it. They say when you marry a Texan, you don't leave Texas. Now, my plan was, yes, yeah, my plan was to get back to Virginia as soon as I finished. At that time, I was just working on my master's, and then I stayed one more year. Had a mentor at the time that introduced me to my wife, now my wife, and the rest is history. I've been here now 37 years. I was going to say almost, but 37 for sure, because I got here in July of 1988, and that's been a long time. So yeah, that
And
was
being a native of that region, even though you played football at James Madison, you're friends with a man that actually became a Dallas Cowboy great in
yes,
Charles Haley.
yeah.
But being I would assume that you were a Washington football fan back then. Do you still get grief for that in the Dallas area at all?
I don't, and you assume wrongly because a lot of people would have thought, oh, here we go. A lot of people would have thought that I was in that area, but never a Washington fan. My boyhood, I'll give you a quick boyhood deal. I fell in love with the Los Angeles Rams, believe it or not, all the way from Norfolk, Virginia, and so had a boyhood hero named Deacon Jones who played for the Rams, the fearsome force up there.
Badass lineman, and you were a
Yeah,
lineman yourself, so.
yes, that was it. That was it.
Uh, what of that? I mean, he was among the all-time greats. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I mean, between him and Joe Green on the
Yeah,
edges
yeah,
at that era, that
yeah.
definitely is somebody that you would want to study. But about Deacon, what was it that drew you to him?
The thing about Deacon was he was so ferocious. He was the greatest. I still think he was the greatest pass rusher. And then he had this head slap, which by the way, and they outlawed that because you can't use that now in football. They did away with that years ago. But Deacon says that's a credit to how lethal his head slap was. He could take any guy and control him just by one pop of the head on the side, and he would go the other way or whatever way he needed to go. So those were the things. And then the last thing would be that ram horn. I just thought a ram was just tough. And so I just that's the kid in me at the time. I was probably about 10 years old when I took hold of him.
So, did you start out wanting to be a defensive lineman, or did that was that just what the coaches picked you out to be from the start?
That's a good question. I don't know that I did. I think you everybody likes those glamour positions. I knew I wasn't going to be a quarterback, and but running back was huge back then, and I did do a little running back in the old playground fields when I first started out. But uh, when I got to high school, I was a tight end, and then a tight end to transfer to the lineman kind of thing. And I wanted to be that next Deacon Jones. So when the coaches started looking for linemen, after I knew I maybe not was a tight end per se, the tackle and the defensive end was what I wanted to be. Yeah.
Well, let's jump a little bit back in your tale and jump into the book just a little bit. Your story proper begins with a quote attributed to Arthur Ashe. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That's quoting Arthur Ashe. Now, considering using football as kind of a jumping off point, was it in that environment that you saw that you certainly had your moments on the football field, but was it kind of scratching something in your head saying maybe it's the sidelines for me, maybe it's teaching? Was that where you found your calling, so to speak?
I don't know, Craig. I think it was more of the people in my life, and I know the book does a lot to talk about mentors, and I knew I had coaches that had really helped me along the way. One in particular, I still have a picture of him on my wall up here because he was fantastic. And the calling was, yeah, if I can't do it this way, because I'm not the biggest defensive end in the world, I was only about 6'1" at the height of my height. It was, how can I impact students in teaching? And education was that field, and that's what he did for his life goal. This particular gentleman.
I do believe you did refer to him within the book, and the one of the things that I really did, and this is mostly paraphrasing from but the vibe that I got as far as when you talk about your leadership style and your leadership philosophy, that if you're not going to be able to convince somebody that they care, they're not going to follow you. Therefore, you cannot lead them. And having been a student in college all the way back to nursery school, it was a problem for me if I didn't think that teacher particularly cared or didn't have the je ne sais quoi or charisma to carry off. I didn't tend to find that. So I guess my question as an educator, how does an educator, or how does anybody get over that hump of not being able to relate to? You're never going to hit 1,000 on anything, but most
right
would be the goal. What are some things that a teacher should be reaching for as far as relatability and overall leadership?
Well, you're hitting it, and you're crafting my answer, and that relatability relationship is the key. So I would say behind everything else, if you don't have relationship first, then you've missed the boat, and that would be teacher, coach, principal, superintendent, you name it, anybody, any college professor. If they don't have it, and the college professors are probably some of the crustiest because they think, well, my knowledge is.
They warn you about it in orientations.
Yeah, they do. And their knowledge is supposed to be everything, but it isn't. It's about relationship. I can give you a lady who, I'll give you a quick story, lady who I did not go down the path that she taught, but she was in the social work, psychology kind of field, and it could have been my field. One of my best buddies went that way solely because of what she told him, because he had no course of where he was going to go at all. And he'll say to this day that lady, Dr. Eileen Nelson was her name, was the real reason that he went into social work for over 40 years, just recently retired. I loved her because she gave these great stories. I'll throw this in real quick, Craig. She had classes of 100 students. How do you get to relate to 100, that big lecture room? But she was just that good. She was a natural, and I know some people aren't. So how do you do it? I think you got to be really intentional. You got to work at it, because it is so vital that if you don't do it, you're going to lose more students than you would gain. And it was just like what you said about, you had a lot of people who didn't. I did too. And there's some in that book. I don't name them because I don't call them out. but yeah, there were people who just were in it for whatever you want to call it. and they just did not know how to do the relationship thing. Then you got to do relationships.
There's one anecdote that you did talk about in your early teaching. I believe you were an assistant principal at the time. We're here with Dr. Calvin Lawrence here on the Craig Veltri interview, a service of Scarfire Media. For more on Scarfire Media, check out our website, scarfireradio.net. Check out The Flame and the Scarfire Media Podcast Network, the Cool Brother Podcast, the Mothership, Fire Pit, and thank you for listening to the Craig Veltri interview. You had an anecdote within the book, The Happy Leader, that you made it a point to learn every single one of your students. This is about, I think you said about 400 students, somewhere in that point. That's impressive to me because I really do have trouble with that. How were you able to retain that? And why did you, it goes to what you were saying earlier, I'm sure, but why was that such a important to you?
That's a big deal. So my mom was really good, and I started the book with mom and dad. Mom was awesome at memory and names. Dad was good too, but mom was just the best, better than me and my sister put together. And my sister's also good at that thing. And I realized kind of early on that people don't care what you know. They know they care when they know that you care, and that if you the start really is that name thing, because if the person that you're working with remains nameless and in a way faceless, then you don't have that same connectivity that you do. And mom would do this everywhere with the waitresses, with the guy at the gas station, with the you name it. She'd learn their names. She'd almost know the children's names and their wives and whatever, or girlfriends. And so I learned real early that when I had a connection with a kid with just the name, first name basis, just get it down. It was the most important thing. And so at that one school, you said 3-4, and my buddy would correct you. It was 600 at that first school that I was the AP at.
Even better.
Not easy. The easy people to learn are the kids at the top and the kids that are doing bad stuff all the time because they're always in your office. But the big group, I know why.
That was pointed out to me a couple of times.
Yeah. About, I believe it. The big group in the middle, there's probably about 400 or more of them. The huge group, they remain faithless. They don't want to get in trouble. They're not really the cream of the crop. They're not the top A's and B kind of kids. They're just there. Those are the ones that I was intentional about making sure I knew. So the easy thing was they would get off the bus. As they got off the bus, I got the names. As they came to the school, I got the names. The easiest way is to get them as they come in and tie the names or something. And there are little tricks to memorizing names. I know even people who aren't really good with names can learn. And I told one lady who said what you said about not great at names, I said, use the cheat code. My son, who was a gamer, has a cheat code all the time. Use the cheat code. Use the cheat code with names. Write them down. Put them somewhere. Put something on your desk. But you can cheat, especially when you're in a classroom where you know all the desks and you keep it a seating chart and you got all that stuff. You can use a cheat code. So there's little tricks to that trade, but the most important thing is to get them down, to learn them, and you'll see you'll work wonders above wonders if you can learn someone's name.
We'll talk about more anecdotes from the book, but you have written books before this one. Why did you decide that it was time to reflect back on your life and project back what you had learned?
Yeah, I'll answer that in two ways. So I really haven't, Craig. The only thing I wrote before this was a dissertation for that doctorate, and that was not the same thing, in my opinion. It was a research article about high school to college transition. But this was huge for me because I don't consider myself a writer. But the reason that I needed to write it was the stories that I thought I could tell and share that I thought were just amazing in my life. I kind of, you get to a certain point, and I guess I'm at that point, Craig, where I start reflecting back on some things and like, how the heck, and I want to use some really colorful language here. How in the world did I get to where I am from point A to point B? And it was really because of the people. And sometimes they came in at just the perfect time in my life. So I wanted to tell those stories before I got too old, before I couldn't remember. And the amazing thing, and this is the best part about the writing, was going back and reflecting on the stories and the people. And a lot of them are no longer with us, but their stories can live on in a book if you write them out. And so I had to do it for that reason. There's a couple other little things to that too, but yeah, that was my main motivation.
So it was mostly a tribute to all the people
Yeah,
that affected you at this point. I've often said, uh, or at least I've made it a point to ask anybody who are professionals in psychiatry or any other mental health field, the question of nature and nurture. Are you born with a certain way, or do you learn it? And 201, every single one of them says you learn it. It's the environment that does affect you, and you learn from that environment. And I think you make a great argument. Did you mean to make an argument for it?
I think I do make a little argument because I know that I was not the natural guy that you would say was open, willing to share, willing to go across the room, talk to people. I was a lot more of a shy nature guy. I'll use the word introvert. And I still think in that way I am to a degree, although they have a word in the middle now called ambivert. And I think I'm more of that guy where when I have to get open and like right now doing an interview, I'm great. If I had to go to a dance or a party or something and I can be a wallflower, I'm perfect being the wallflower and nobody needs to know any different. But yeah. I think you learn. I think I learned. I've learned over time. I've watched people very closely. That education thing and the leadership thing in particular has been so major, such a major force in my life that I've learned if I'm going to be good at this, or I'm going to affect anybody's life, I'm going to stay in this field, and I did for 41 years. Then I've got to get some stuff down, and I've learned more. I'll throw this in the last piece from failures than I really have from the successes. Successes are great, but a lot of those failures I've had in life, they're in the book. They are in the book. I've learned a lot more from those and then from people who failed than I did from maybe even my triumphs.
I had a professor in college who said that you didn't fail at something, it is a teachable moment. And I think that I'm sure you've used the phrase yourself, but
Yeah.
the we're here with Dr. Calvin Lawrence here on the Craig Veltri interview, author of The Happy Leader, available where all fine books are sold and online. For more on Scarfire Media, rather, go to scarfireradio.net. There's a really great quote middle of the book that I like that you highlight on there. The jack of all trades philosophy that I'd been previously encouraged to adopt was set on a back shelf in higher education. I do think I understand. I think where you mean in higher education, you're tended to be encouraged to be a lot more specialized in what you are trying to learn. But is there more to it than that?
You got it. You bingo. I was gonna say bingo. You got it, and I think a lot of people would miss that. So when I went to higher ed, about a little bit over halfway into my career, I realized that they really like you to stay in that little spectrum or box or whatever it is that whatever your specialty area. If I go over to like let's say the engineering department, they probably want to kick me out of there. Get out of there. You only know education. You only know this, or you go. But what I had to do in K-12 was be a jack of all trades. I had to know everything. So that mentality has stayed with me. Even when I was in higher ed, I was doing more than what I probably was called to do, probably maybe what I should have done, and definitely what my expertise was. And then I also like to reach out to other people who know other things so I can learn from them, right? So I didn't want to stay just in my field. I think I can throw this little piece in there. Diversity is a beautiful thing. And
Yes.
part of that thinking is we can be better at what we do if we're more diverse. And whether it's with the people, whether it's with your thinking, whether it's with knowledge, but I love diversity. And so, yeah, that you got it. You got it.
Well, not to mention a couple of times it seems that there were a lot of quotes and just an overall philosophy of not really pigeonholing yourself into one avenue. That a title doesn't make you that one thing for the rest of your life. It and I would think that it feeds into to certain leadership qualities being adaptable. Am I on the right track with that notion?
You do, and that was a phrase, or I didn't coin that phrase, but you're not just a title. You're a lot more complex than that. Most of us are, and I would hope that most people would think beyond whatever their titles are. By the way, when you say that, Craig, this is one of my tricks too. Well, it works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody, but I never start a conversation with "What do you do for a living?" because people kind of have a tendency in their heads to pigeonhole. If you're a minister, oh, okay, I can only talk about this, and I better stay away from my cuss words, and I better stay away from that, and I better stay in this. Same thing with a police officer. I better not talk about how I speed and do all this other stuff. So I don't like to find out the title of somebody, because you're just not a title. You're more than that. And I will start out with, this is my favorite line: where are you from? Now, if you have a accent, and I sometimes I can pick up the region of the United States in particular, where you're from, or if you're from another country, of course you're going to have an accent. The UK British accent is very plain and fluent, and you know what it is. You got some other accents there too. Then we'll start out with that, and then it takes us in all kinds of different directions. May take us to the career field, but it may or may not. But I love that one, because then everybody has something, and you don't feel like you're pigeonholing somebody because they're the CEO or they're the custodian. They're all at the same level when you do it that way, and that's what I really like.
I also love getting the question of what do you do, because I already hear the responses to I'm a barroom singer. Oh, you sleep in your car and you've never been on the radio, and you fear the responses where you have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
explain,
yeah, yeah.
no, I'm not
Not,
dying in the street, and I'm not selling out an arena yet. So on both aspects of it. Now I will say, I will just jump to the end, because I do think that I encourage everybody to read the entire book, but I think the great meat of what you have written here lies in the final chapter entitled Renaissance Man. And you have a lot of great headings and great advice leading in. Family is foundational to become a great athlete. Don't become uh, you must have humility, different stroke for different folks. Thanks, Mom. I love that touch on it, by the way. But probably what just shows how much heart and care that you had for your students uh, was a note that you had when you were uh, when uh, you were an assistant principal at one point, and you had a student that confided in you. And I will give a quick trigger warning to anybody. We're about to talk a little bit about suicide and self harm. That student had confided in you that he was considering your quote suicide, unaliving himself to the algorithm gods here. And you said in conclusion, quoting you, when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you're rotten. And you conclude with, I know you take care to remember that. I know I will, because until I pass from this life into the next, I'm not done yet, and neither are you. That is just such a great survival instinct, and just such a great perspective that you imparted. And as somebody who has had uh, thoughts of that myself, I think I certainly couldn't think that I could have handled that situation better. Um, and that kind of care and that thought didn't occur to you immediately. Perhaps you can feel. I'd like my listeners to actually just read that story, but um, do I guess my question is to that is, was that something that was, it stood out obviously, but is that something that um would occur or had occurred or reoccurred in the interim, and is that how you handled it to a one?
I think Craig, that would be how I would handle it. Although I haven't had anyone be that plain, that blunt with me, and I'd seen some of it before. And let's remember, we're talking early 2000s, so we weren't talking about mental health, and definitely not mental health with men, young men at that time. So it was really an interesting and a very I guess it really put me back, but I knew I needed to do more, and it probably has caused me to be more aware since that time, to make sure that we look out for other people and to be more open and to be more willing and be a happy leader. Give somebody a smile, because you never know what they're going through. You can't read their minds. You can't until they share with you what they're going through. And so, yeah, I don't know how, but I knew I needed to do something, like I said, and part of it was just giving the kind of, in that poem, that last little piece there, it's like a mini version of my life story. And you could even kind of take the book and put a synopsis and say, this is it. If you want to put it down, this is what he's done. He's had some good, some bad, some ugly. He's had some good times, some bad times, but through it all, you keep looking at, things can get better. I'm hopeful we can do better. And the best is yet to come. Because when you're ripe, you're rotten. And I hope I'm not ripe, still not ripe yet. I hope I'm
Hardly.
but yeah, still learning, still trying to grow, still trying to get better, still trying to figure out things. Having great interviewers like you help me to kind of shape some things and maybe look at what I need to do better the next time.
Well, on two questions, and then we'll get to the questionnaire. Number one, I think you I neglected to ask the title, the happy leader. Why did you use that adjective?
Well, we talked about a friend of mine, and I can't give Danny Felt credit for this one, but another friend of mine on LinkedIn, Rachel Randolph, who's a communication expert. I had all these flowery titles, Craig, and I was like, and then there was some I was going to take from some kind of movie that I saw, which like The Wonderful Life or something like that, something goofy and loony. And she finally she boiled it down to me, and she said, you're just a happy guy. Why don't you just, and you're going to talk about leadership. It's simple, the happy leader. And I'm like, that too simple? And I'm like, and she's like, no. And I'm like, I guess that is me. And so the happy leader, and then the last part, the relatable stories of influence. Well, it's about stories of influence and hope. And then it just kind of came together. It's kind of like when sometimes you need help. And the book really talks about, I've needed a lot of help all my entire life. And usually that help comes just when I need it. And when I needed that title, here comes this young lady along, and she just kind of nailed it. And I still give her the credit to this day. She was the one who gave me the impetus for saying, yeah, this is who I am. It's simple. It's there. I don't think I'm trying to copy somebody, but it's who I am.
Well, last question regarding your life and the book. Considering you have connection in football, considering you live in a region where they have a dome stadium, a rather large one, and you still retain a passion for the game. I find it curious that your one bucket list item that is on the tip top of your bucket list items is that you have never attended a Super Bowl. You didn't elaborate on how this is possible. How have you not attended a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I have a buddy, and he was one of my college teammates, along with the Charles Haley story, who's been to maybe 10 or 12. Now, the reason that he's been to 10 or 12 is he's been security for some of those games. So he's gotten yeah, that's a clincher. I have never been to a Super Bowl, been inside the bowl. But this last Super Bowl that was in New Orleans, which is not that far away, another buddy of mine, we drove down and we were there. Now, we didn't get what we wanted, which were tickets inside, but we were as close to the Super Bowl experience as you can get. If I can only get that and that's it, I'll check that off the bucket list, because we were there. The Chiefs fans were there. The Eagles fans were there, and there was a lot of stuff going on in that in New Orleans, as you well imagine. You don't even have to have a Super Bowl to have something going on in New Orleans. That's a party city, right?
Oh, I've been to New Orleans. My grandfather was a jazz bass player. I never
Hey,
got to
you,
hear some stories,
Craig, how wild it can get. It was wild. So I did get that experience. And this is after the book. So after the book came out, I have to share this. The book dropped the day we got back, which was February the 10th. Never will forget it, because those, you got major dates in your life, like when you meet your woman to be, and when you got married. I have to have those down. My wedding anniversary, August 3rd. And that's
Texas lady, you better, right?
Yeah, Texas lady, you better make sure, because Texas girls pack. And so, yeah, I did. Didn't get in the building, but we were there as close to experiences, and we got to a Super Bowl party that was out of this world. So yeah, and the rest of it, I probably need to keep under hat, because it was
it's New Orleans. Voulez bon temps.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we have a nice way of closing here on the Craig Veltri interview, Dr. Lawrence. It's called the No Kidding Questionnaire. A couple of rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind whenever you're ready, and away we go. Childhood celebrity crush.
Childhood celebrity crush. Childhood. Oh, what was the girl named Velma on Good Times? Childhood celebrity crush.
Oh gosh, yeah. JJ's sister, right?
JJ's sister, right? I had a picture on my wall.
Beautiful. What was your favorite subject in school?
History. Easy one. Love still to this day.
Was that what you mostly taught when you were in the classroom? I know you.
No, I had somebody deter me from doing that, and I wish they had not ever said a word to me. They said the only thing you can do with history is be a lawyer or politician, and I did not want any part of either one of those. Yeah.
We might get to that reviewed in a second, but what occupation other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, if I could, it would be to be a historian, to be able to go out to go to great cities like the Rome Colosseum, to do some things, and just to give talks about the history of a particular thing. And I love the Civil War, and we're in Texas. There's not a lot of Civil War history here. There's a lot more in Virginia, and there's the Appomattox Courthouse and all that stuff. So yeah.
You definitely talked about that in the book, and I lived in North Carolina, Tennessee. That's a lot of consequence in that
Yes,
area.
Yes,
the Franklin Battlefield just outside of Nashville, and there are a lot of sites in Nashville proper that saw some action for sure. On the other side of the coin, Doc, I don't care how many bags of money are handed to you. What job would you never want to attempt?
Ooh, that's the toughest one you give me, Craig. Let me think about that one. A job I would never want to attempt. And maybe I've attempted it, because one of the things that
it can be something you attempt.
It could, okay. Well, then it was law enforcement, because I don't think I have the mentality.
You interviewed for NCIS at one point.
I did NCIS. I have a buddy who did a great 30-year stint, and he wanted me to come in with him. It wasn't too late. I was 28 at the time. I had all the credentials and qualifications. And then the guy told me something that blew my mind in terms of changed my life forever. He said, well, everybody can't do what you do. And I had never had anyone outside of education, maybe not even in education, tell me that. It sent me on that path to, let's get more education. Let's go to Texas. Let's do this. Let's do that. But yeah.
It sounds like a job interview that was more consequential, and you didn't even get the job than anything like that. By the way, I'll never forget President Obama doing a State of the Union address. I think it was 2010, and he said, become a teacher. Your country needs you. I'm sitting in my dorm room watching it, and I'm saying, not that badly. So, so bless you for you doing. I have teachers throughout my family. So thank you for all you've done on that. What is you've been around the country, you're working around the world. What is your go-to food on a road trip?
Go-to food. Oh, real easy one. Everybody doesn't do. Oh, yeah. I'll give you some of my favorites. So if I'm on a road trip, I'm close to the ocean, close to a waterway, it's got to be seafood. Seafood number one. Pizza's a real easy one, real easy go-to.
What's your pizza order?
What's my pizza order? It's gonna have to have meat, lots of meat. So pepperoni. I like ground beef more than I like sausage, and then a little extra cheese. Yeah.
That sounds about me. Throw some green peppers and onions and mushrooms on that. We're good to go.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, throw those mushrooms on there. That's right.
Uh, Having grown up, I mean, Norfolk is a well-noted port, and it does have a good seafood. I've had some great seafood on Virginia Beach. Do you recommend seafood in that area, or is there a better place for it you found?
I do. And if you're gonna do seafood in that area, and the Marylanders would argue with me on this, but you got to do those crab cakes down there, man. They melt in your mouth. Even at the airport, I'm at the airport. Whenever I fly out of Norfolk, I got to get crab cakes at the little place that they have there, and then I'm good to go.
Well, now that we've built the healthy appetite, probably maybe over crab cakes. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Who would it be? Oh, I love that question, and it would be Arthur Ashe. I mean, that guy was an amazing. He doesn't get credit for the things that he should. He was a great tennis player, but a much greater man, and an historian. And so I love what he did. He's also a fellow Virginian from Richmond, which was right up the road from Norfolk in that Tidewater area. So yeah, it would be Arthur.
I mean, his name being on the U.S. Open Stadium in Queens, New York, I think that keeps his name alive. Tennis is not really a sport that's covered much, sadly. And you talk about the greats, you talk about Jimmy Connors and McEnroe and Agassi and Sampras. It seems that he gets mentioned in last place, and I can't really place why that would be the case about Ashe, because he was, what footage I've seen of him in his matches, a joy to watch. Easily a top 10 great, not merely for the legacy of his race and his philanthropy, but yeah, I agree. What a fascinating man, and just a joy to have had him on this planet for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is your biggest pet peeve? You were a teacher. I'm sure it's a mile long. So,
yeah, I had about it was the gossip was the big one, and then what was it? There was something else that I would say, gossip to bully people, to push them into things. We of course you're a school guy, and especially as an AP, you get a whole lot of the bullying has never been as bad as it is now. It's even worse in schools, I think, because now
you think so. Why?
Yeah. And so I would say with a lot of leaders, a lot of people who should be in leadership and not talking about people and running them down, that's the first one. And then it kind of bleeds over into the other one, which you kind of bully people and make them feel like less than they are. And that's a huge pet peeve for me.
You said that bullying is you say that bullying is worse, and it seems like the spotlight is on bullying more than ever. So what would you attribute to why bullying is worse now?
I think because there was a time when you could get away when you got home as a kid and you didn't see it. And this is the pre-online era, Craig. And so as a person who had to deal with a lot of that in the schools, I would be amazed to understand how do you keep that in check, because you can't. You really don't have any control over what happens once they get out, and they spend more time outside of school than they do in. And then there's that weekend, and you got a lot of this stuff going on, and it's online, and it's current, and it's fluent. And even though we've got a lot of the stuff to say be preventative, it is still something that just is, I think, it's proliferated over time just because of the avenues that you can get at people and make people feel uncomfortable. And that's a sad testimony.
Yeah, when you always got a screen, you usually don't have a moment's peace. It seems
Right.
so. Yeah, I can't imagine. I said it last week with someone. I can't imagine who was a teacher at one point. I can't imagine. It's hard enough to be a kid, but now you have the extra stimuli, which is already bad for children. Trust me, I know. Last question of the questionnaire. Normally, what is the best advice? And you got a lot of it in your book. What is the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Oh, I can give you that one. I love this one because it had to do with our only and one son who is now 24, fixing to be 25 in August. So when the baby came along, and babies change everything, right? Baby came along and everybody's trying to tell you how to do this and then do this, and my best man from my wedding and also another college football teammate said, "Here's what you do: you find what works for you and you stick with it." And this could be a metaphor for life with people, but find what works for you and stick with it. And we did, and it did, and it does. And so I would say find what works for you, because people are going to tell you a lot of stuff, and it may work for somebody else, but it may not work in this another particular instance. And we worked, and sometimes that's a trial and error thing. Sometimes that takes patience, but once you find it, stick with it.
I, I've heard a version of that advice many times, and every time it's not only prescient but perfectly accurate. The That is normally the last question of the questionnaire, but anytime I have found out that the guest has a teaching background, they get a bonus question. I call it the Lonnie Billard Memorial question, and it goes as follows: What, maybe not the best advice that you have given a student, but what is the most common advice that you find giving your students?
Oh, it has been it's been crafted over time. So I can throw this one out. I think it's I'm not cheating on this one. And that is, you've got to find a mentor, someone who speaks your language, somebody who when you talk to, you just feel like you're at home with them, you're comfortable, you can trust them verbatim. It kind of goes back to that kid who came to me that time. But find a mentor. You're going to need those people. And throughout the book, if you think about it, I've had all these mentors, some that are lifelong, some that come through just a season of my life, but they were there right when I needed them. But students need somebody to believe in them. They got to have somebody. Just one person is great. I had multiple, but they got to have at least one, because when there's nobody, that's when those other thoughts and those crazy things happen, and you get sidetracked. But yeah, that would be the one.
Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, often said, "Look for the helpers," and
Yeah,
so that
that's
definitely rings true on that one. The
right.
book is The Happy Leader. The guest is Dr. Calvin Lawrence. Thank you so much for your time and insight on just about everything. This is really a great read. I really recommend that my listeners go out and get a copy of The Happy Leader. Dr. Lawrence, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Craig Veltri interview.
So, Craig, I couldn't have been more pleased to be on the show with you. Thank you, sir.
The Craig Veltri interview, where Craig Veltri interviews wonderful people, is a production of Scarfire Media, the voice of the independent arts. Written and edited by Craig Veltri. Your announcer is Megan Pennington. The opening theme, Shut Up, I Love You, written by Trenton Chandler and Craig Veltri, performed by Craig Veltri, produced by Jack Gavin. The closing theme, Shine On, written and performed by Craig Veltri, produced by Brian Cole. The new single, Saving Up Dreams, is coming out very soon to streaming. If you haven't heard it yet, it is available by listening to the Dallas Jack interview from a couple of weeks ago. Just go to the end of that episode and you can hear Saving Up Dreams now. The standalone single is coming soon. Keep your eye on my social media, and I should have an official announcement, if not before next week's episode, during next week's episode of the Craig Veltri interview. In the meantime, you can check out the Off the Row sessions, which are the 4 singles that I released under the production of P.T. Houston at his Off the Row studios in Franklin, Tennessee. That is available on streaming, along with Letters to the Defendant. Limited edition vinyl LPs of Letters to the Defendant are still available. $35 can be sent to my Venmo at Craig-Veltri, Zelle Craig Veltri Official at gmail.com, or to my Cash App, $ Craig Veltri. And you can get the very few copies left. I will not have them very much longer. I am almost out. So if you haven't gotten it, get your copy now. Time now to update the event calendar, because you must know where I am at all times. If it sounds lean, that's only because I'm coming off 4 in a row this week. Friday, August 1st, Tin Roof, Myrtle Beach from 6 to 9 p.m. Then Saturday, August 2nd, Black Drum Brewing from 6 to 9 p.m. on Kingston Plantation in Myrtle Beach. For full dates, including Memphis, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Myrtle Beach proper for the rest of August, check out my website, craigveltri.bandzoogle.com, for booking info, including full band and this podcast. Email me at craigveltriofficial@gmail.com. You can find the interview on Facebook by searching the Craig Veltri interview, YouTube at Craig Veltri Music, TikTok at Craig Veltri, and you can find me on Instagram, or as my old roommate, the Tommy Thomas, used to call it, Instagirl, at Craig.Veltri. With special thanks to Danny Felt. For Dr. Calvin Lawrence, I'm Craig Veltri, and this has been the Craig Veltri interview. With that, I'll pass. Shine on.